Have you ever reached a point where you just couldn't do it anymore? Maybe you were smiling on the outside, but inwardly you were exhausted, wondering if anyone, even God, saw what you were carrying. You were exhausted, you were burnt out, you were stressed, you have had enough. If that is you, you're not alone. One of the greatest heroes in the Bible reached exactly this point. This is Elijah, a man who just witnessed one of God's greatest miracles. Fire fell from heaven. A nation saw God's power. If anyone should have been full of confidence, it was Elijah. But only one chapter later, he runs into the wilderness, sits under a tree, and tells God he's had enough. He wants to give up. And what God does next may completely change the way you see him. To understand this story to its fullest, we need a little context. Israel had turned away from the one true God and began worshipping Baal, a false god who many believed controlled rain, storms, and fertility. The king and queen at the time, King Ahab and Queen Jezebel, encouraged this worship of Baal. And anyone who remained faithful to God was severely persecuted and even killed. Elijah was God's prophet, his messenger, and for years he had stood almost completely alone, calling the nation back to God. In 1 Kings 18, everything builds towards a dramatic showdown on Mount Carmel. Elijah answers by challenging Baal's prophets to a test. Whichever God answers by sending fire from heaven is the true God. The prophets of Baal cry out for hours upon hours upon hours upon hours upon hours, but nothing happens because Baal is powerless. Elijah then prays a simple prayer, nothing excessive, nothing super wordy, and God answers by sending fire from heaven, consuming the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, and even the water surrounding the altar. The crowd falls to the ground and declares the Lord, He is God. Now you're probably thinking what I'm thinking. This feels like the moment that everything should change. But at the beginning of chapter 19, Queen Jezebel threatens to kill Elijah. After years of pressure, opposition, danger, the emotional weight finally catches up with him. Elijah runs into the wilderness, sits beneath a broom tree, and tells God, I've had enough. He feels completely alone, and he tells God to let him die. But what happens next reveals God's heart and tells us exactly who God is. God doesn't condemn Elijah. He doesn't lecture him. He doesn't tell him to simply be stronger. Instead, God cares for him because God loves him. He gives Elijah time to sleep. He provides food and water through an angel, and he patiently waits for Elijah to restore his strength before speaking to him. Later, Elijah encounters God on a mountain. A powerful wind comes, then an earthquake, then a fire. But God is not revealed through any of them. Instead, God speaks through a gentle whisper. It is a reminder that God's work is sometimes quieter than we expect, but no less powerful. God also gently corrects Elijah's thinking. Elijah thinks he is the only faithful person left, but God reminds him there are 7,000 people who have remained faithful. Elijah is not as alone as he feels. Finally, God gives him a renewed mission, and he provides him with a man named Elisha to continue the work alongside him. So these two chapters, they reveal something so beautiful about God's character. The God who displays incredible power on Mount Carmel is the exact same God who tenderly cares for a broken down, burnt out, exhausted servant. He is mighty enough to defeat false gods, and he is compassionate enough to sit with people in their weakness. If you've ever felt burned out, disappointed, anxious, or alone, this story reminds us that God doesn't abandon us when we're running on empty. He meets us with grace, restores us gently, and reminds us that our feelings don't always tell the full story. His presence remains even when we struggle to see it. God bless you. I hope this has helped you, and I hope you have an amazing day.